All right, man, I said that we were going to get into some old world Warhammer lore, so here we are from Arbiter Ian, the timeline of the old world in 20 minutes. I don't know nothing about the old world of Warhammer. I know a little bit, an inkling bit of Warhammer 40k lore. I don't know much about it. So let's check it out.
Hi gang, once, long ago, there was a world, an old world. A
You don't say!
world consumed in the fires of rebranding mostly, but it's back. The Old World game is out, and the world of legend has returned. So in this video, let's peer back into the mists of time and run through the history of the Old World.
Warhammer minus 40k. Ooh. I like the music.
If you're relatively new to Warhammer or Age of Sigmar, you might not recognize the Old World, but the story I'm going to tell in this video has been around for a long time. Before Age of Sigmar, Games Workshop's flagship fantasy game, in fact the original Warhammer game, was called Warhammer Fantasy Battle. Its setting was a single planet, the Warhammer world. No, not that one. And most of its storylines took place on a single continent of that planet, called the Old World, in the same way that explorers in the Age of Sail called America the New World. Over 8 editions of this game, its stories were fleshed out and it acquired thousands of years of history, all of which ended when the game was discontinued in 2015.
I had no idea it was discontinued. Okay, so what, it got a reboot?
The Warhammer world was destroyed. That was actually written into the story, and its inhabitants made their way into the new mortal realms, the setting for its replacement, Age of Sigmar. But now, it's back. Games Workshop have released a new game called, slightly confusingly, The Old World, and the legends and histories of yore have been resurrected like a happy Nehekaran skeleton. So, armed with a copy of the Old World rulebook, let's retell the creation myth of this huge setting and find out how all its factions came to be. But before I start, some disclaimers. First, there's a lot of worlds floating about, so let's just clarify. This place, the entire planet, used to be called the Warhammer World, but now seems to be called the World of Legend. That's the setting, like the Mortal Realms. This continent on it is called the Old World, and that's where the game takes place, so the game's called the Old World too. But in this video, I'm going to tell the story of kind of the entire planet, more or less. Second, although all of this stuff is heavily based on the original Warhammer Fantasy Battle setting, we shouldn't assume it's exactly the same. We don't know how much is being kept or what will change. So for that reason, though I'm going to use imagery from across all editions, all the lore in this video comes directly from the Old World gamebooks. This is the story as it is now. The Old World,
and really that's all that matters, is what's happening now.
Game is set around the year 2276 of the Imperial calendar, but our story begins millennia before that, and like so many Games Workshop settings, it begins with some magic space frogs.
Warhammer minus 15k. All right.
The Old Ones came into the world around 17,000.
So it all started with magic space frogs.
Years ago. They were an incredibly powerful species of travelers, able to move from world to world in great silver ships, and for whatever reason, they had decided that this place would be perfect for whatever unknowable froggy schemes they had. What they found was a cold world orbiting far from its star and dominated by giant creatures, leviathans of the deep, tunneling beasts, great gargants, many of them intelligent, and the most powerful were the dragons. But none of them could stand against the Old One's magic. They built networks of nodes, great...
I don't know, man. I think Warhammer might sound a little bit cooler to me than Warhammer 40k, just because, like, it's more cohesive and makes more sense to me. It's got all these medieval things going on. Warhammer 40k, there's so much happening, so much chaos. Like, that's the whole point of it. There's less chaos in this one. It's more about just like straight up medieval fantasy battles. but on a large scale.
World engines to reshape the continents. They moved the entire planet closer to its star,
That's
warming
crazy.
the climate, and armies of lizard men and their slan overseers, the servants of the Old Ones, forced the beasts back into the dark places of the world, all except one, the celestial dragon, who, instead of fighting the Old Ones, chose to observe and learn from them. Over the next
Is that like the Emperor of Man, but in the old world?
9,000 years, the Old Ones seeded the world with new species. First, the magical elves on their island of
I like that. I like that picture.
Ulthuan,
I like the
then
art.
the dwarves through the World's Edge Mountains in the Old World, and later the primitive tribes of men, and finally the halflings and the ogres, and more crept in too. Stowed away on the great silver ships of the Old Ones were the first orcs and goblins who escaped into this new planet.
Are the orcs still the same in Warhammer Old World as they are in 40K, where like anything they imagine is what happens?
The species thrived, and this reshaping continued for millennia. But 8,000 years before the present day, something went wrong. The Old Ones' power came from a strange other dimension that they manipulated to their will like magic. At the poles of this new world, they constructed two great gates, portals into this other realm that allowed them to come and go as they pleased, but there were things that lived in this
This looks like Lilith from Magic the Gathering.
other dimension, and they whispered at the door, eager to get through.
And also kind of, is it Lilith from Diablo also? Do they share the same name?
They whispered on the winds of magic that flowed from the gates, corrupting some of the younger races into believing they were gods. With every mortal corrupted, their power grew until the great portals bent and broke, shattering into rifts in reality, great ragged holes into the realm of chaos, a storm of
Oh, we're bringing in the realm of chaos in this edition. Okay.
magical energy pouring out over the world, so powerful that a new moon was formed in the sky. Morsleib, the Chaos Moon, made from raw black warpstone.
That's really cool. This looks like a swamp. Like a swamp card for Magic the Gathering.
Solidified energy of chaos. In the few hundred years after this cataclysm, the Old Ones disappeared, and many of the older Slan, the ones who knew their master's plans, were killed attempting to stabilize the world. Chaos
So no more magic space frogs?
swept over the land, infecting the soil and twisting the creatures of the forests into mutants, legions of demons pouring from the poles, and the first war against chaos began.
Yeah, so this is where it starts to be like Warhammer 40K.
Hordes of demons fought legions of lizard men as the servants of the Old Ones attempted to preserve what was left of their master's plans, but the temple cities were overrun, and the Slan pushed back to the southern continent of Lustria. But they didn't fight alone. In the World's Edge Mountains, Grungni, ancestor god of the dwarves, urged his people to fortify their holds, and Grimnir, the warrior god, led huge armies that marched from their mountains to hold back the tide. In the land of Ulthuan, the elven wanderer Ainarian cast himself into the sacred flame of their creator god, Azurian, emerging unscathed as the first Phoenix King of the Elves, and alongside the
Phoenix King of the Elves. So badass.
mage Calidor united his people, the glittering hosts of the elves winning many victories against the darkness. And in the Far East, the last of the great dragons, the celestial dragon, who'd learned from the Old Ones, looked down upon the primitive tribes of men and took pity on them, fighting back the demonic hordes and insulating them from the worship of gods and monsters. The war continued for hundreds of years, with great losses on both sides. In Ulthuan, a demonic incursion killed Astariel, the ever-queen of Ainarian, and stole away his two children. The Phoenix King became a vengeful figure, drawing the blade Widowmaker from the shrine of the war god Cain, and setting up court in dark Nagaraith to the west of the island.
Oh, hey, watch it with that N-word there.
With his new queen, Marathi. Mountain holds were lost, overwhelmed as their dwarven defenders fell, and in Lustria, the great capital of Itza came under siege from an army of demons. All seemed lost until, in a year described in this calendar handily as minus 4420, I know, 3 things happened. In Itza, the oldest of the Slan, Lord Croak, finally died, but set free from its body.
Okay, no. Now the magic space frogs are done.
Croak became more powerful than ever and banished the besieging demon hordes. In the old world, Grimnir, enraged at the loss of dwarven life, took the first Slayer oath, cutting his beard and spiking his hair before setting off into the northern realm of chaos to enter the rift and kill the chaos gods themselves. And Calador Dragon Tamer, fearing what would happen as his friend Einarion fell further into madness, enacted a great ritual, sacrificing himself and many of the other elven mages to create a magical vortex above Ulthuan that would drain the magic from the world even as it continued to pour in through the polar rifts. And eventually, 1,000 years after the Great Cataclysm, the storm of magic subsided. What followed was an age of recovery. The elves crowned a new...
Hey, got something cool going on in the Warhammer universe. Something actually good's happening. It's not going to last long. It's fleeting, and it's probably... Actually, the age of recovery is probably also really, really shitty. It's just the least shitty. Man, I'm glad I live in this world and not the Warhammer universe, either one of them.
New Phoenix King, passing over Einarion and Marathi's son, Malarian, and anointing instead Bel-Shanar, the explorer, who founded colonies of elves across the world, while the dwarves spread through its mountains, some venturing far to the east to Zorn Ozkal, the great skull land, between the World's Edge Mountains and the Mountains of Morn. The elves and dwarves in the old world became great allies, trading and pushing back those remnants of the war against chaos to the north and to the deep forests. In the far east, the lands that have been protected from the predations of chaos by the celestial...
This guy is fucking huge, man.
Dragon united as the Empire of Grand Cathay and its astromancers brought forth a great warpstone meteorite to ruin the lands of their enemies, the ogres of the Mountains of Morn, creating a colossal crater known as the Great
Ogres, not orcs? We got ogres in this world?
Maw. But this new prosperity was about to be plunged into disarray again. Malarian, son of Einarion and Marathi, assassinated Bel-Shanar and declared himself Phoenix King, and a civil war known as the Sundering broke out amongst the elves. At the height of the war, the Dread King Malarian attempted to unbind the magical vortex and unleash the power of chaos over Ulthuan.
You know, I think I know the problem in the Warhammer universe. Stop naming people these things. They sound badass, they become badass.
But he couldn't control it, and the brief surge of power destroyed his homeland of Nagaraith, fracturing it into the sea. Malarian, Marathi, and their followers were defeated and fled over the seas to the north, to the cold and inhospitable lands of Nagaroth, eventually becoming the Dark Elves. But Malarian carried on plotting. Raiders from Nagaroth attacked dwarven caravans in the old world and cheated the dwarves out of their gold, and when the dwarf High King, Gotrek Starbreaker, sent emissaries to complain to Ulthuan, the new Phoenix King, Calador II, was so enraged he sent the ambassador home with his beard shaved. The resulting War of the Beard lasted 400 years until Calador II was slain and the Phoenix crown claimed as a prize by the dwarfs, and the new Phoenix King carried...
I don't know what just happened there. Oh, my internet's being shit because of the weather.
Adriel recalled all high elves from the old world, cutting ties with the dwarves and retreating back to Ulthuan. Those elves who chose to remain would eventually abandon the ports and cities and retire to the forest of Athel Loren, becoming the Wood Elves. But while the elves and dwarves fought their wars, a new power rose as the primitive tribes of men in the old world formed their first...
This is where it gets super based. It's when the men get introduced, the real men.
Empire.
That's probably where everything goes to complete shit, because humans are retarded.
In minus 2500 by the imperial calendar, during the Sundering, Setra united the great necropolis cities of Nehekara, founding a dynasty that would last hundreds of years.
The Land of the Dead. I remember that movie.
Armies all across the world.
I love that movie.
500 years later, elven mages from Nagaroth were diverted in a storm and came to Kemri, greatest of the Nehekaran cities, where their knowledge was eagerly absorbed by the Prince of Kemri, a man called Nagash. Nehekara and Grand Cathay weren't the only human empires of the time. The city of Tylos had risen as a trading post of dwarves and men in northern Tilia, a few hundred years after Nehekara, but when its citizens celebrated their success with a great monumental bell and it tolled
What's with these cards? These cards look really cool.
for the first time, the population were drowned in a rain of warpstone and a tide of squeaking horror that erupted from its mines, and it was consumed by the blighted marshes. So although Nehekara wasn't the only civilization in the old world at that time, it was definitely the longest lived. Maybe that's the wrong choice of words. The kings of Nehekara had long been obsessed by their own mortality, building great pyramids to house their remains, but none had cracked the secrets of eternal life.
Yeah, this is definitely some Egyptian architecture. Egyptian-esque. I can see how it's like parallel with our world a little bit.
Until Nagash, who, as priest king of Kemri, distilled an elixir from human blood to extend his own life, bent the resources of his city to increasing his sorcerous power, and raised legions of skeletons to conquer the whole of Nehekara.
Skeletons!
But he underestimated his enemies, and the remaining priest kings of the other cities united against him and eventually defeated him. He fled to Cripple Peak, where he ruled over an empire of degenerate humans and undead, as he continued to gather power. The next few centuries were known by the
That sounds like hell, literally.
dwarves as the time of woes. The elves retreated from the old world, and the dwarves came under attack from hordes of goblins and orcs, and even the first Skaven. Where could they have come from? Who knows? Eventually abandoning their holds on the east of the World's Edge Mountains, it wouldn't be until hundreds of years later that some of the lost eastern holds will be retaken. Back in Nehekara, the stolen tomes of Nagash have been long studied by the nobility of the city of Lamia, who created a lesser version of this elixir, granting themselves unnaturally long life, but also a thirst for the blood of the living. When the rest of the Nehekara
A thirst for the blood of the living.
and cities united again to drive out these new vampires, they found refuge in the court of...
Oh man, look at this. Fleeing from his enemies, Nagash wandered in the desert. Thirst parched his throat, and hunger gnawed his gut. Yet the great necromancer trudged on, haunted by dark visions. I just love how that's written.
Of Nagash. The great necromancer attacked Nehekara again and again, but united under the priest king Alcadizar the Conqueror, they were defeated until Nagash released a magical plague.
Is this like their Egyptian era?
Land, striking down everyone except Alcadizar, who was brought in chains to Cripple Peak. But while Nagash prepared a great ritual to resurrect the population of Nehekara as a colossal army of skeletons, Alcadizar was freed by some furry allies and, armed with
Rat
a blade
people?
of horrific power, killed Nagash, escaping with his crown. Don't worry, he'll be back. A lot. Anyway, the ritual was disrupted and Nagash was temporarily killed, but the spell was so powerful the population of Nehekara remained animated under the control of their long-dead Tomb Kings, including the original Tomb King, Cetra. For the next 1,000 years...
Yeah, it's straight up just like Egypt. Egypt times a million.
The tribes of men settled in the northern Old World grew and prospered. In the far west, around the forest of Athel Loren, the Bretonni tribes settled. As in the east, the dwarven realms shrank again under constant attack from orcs and goblins until all the mountains between Mad Dog Pass and Karak Eight Peaks were in goblin hands. The dwarves stepped up trade relations with these new human realms, helping Arthur of the Tutagens found the city of Middenheim. A few years later, in the lands that would become the Empire, to the Umbarogan tribe, a man called Sigmar was born and became a great friend to the dwarves. He rescued the dwarven king, Kurgan Ironbeard, from orc captivity, receiving Gal Maraz, the Skull Splitter, in return, and together they won the Battle of Blackfire Pass, destroying a colossal orc army and driving the orcs back from human and dwarf lands for years.
What marks the year zero? What makes zero so significant?
The following year, year zero of this new calendar, a twin-tailed comet was seen in the sky, and the year after, Sigmar was crowned emperor by the high priest of Ulrich. The next half century was something of a golden age for this new empire.
Right? That doesn't often happen in the Warhammer universe. In the old world, I guess it's a little bit not as chaotic. So you can have these golden eras.
Settled in its lands and contributed to its advancement. Orc and goblin raids were kept at bay, and a huge invasion by a resurrected Nagash campaigning north in search of his lost hat was defeated, and Nagash himself felled by Sigmar at the
well, you say it's a golden age, but there's still all kinds of war and death and famine.
Battle of the River Reich. After 50 years of rule, Sigmar established the system of elect accounts to continue governance of his empire and disappeared into the east. And over the next century, he became revered as a god, the patron god of the new empire as it continued to grow. A few hundred years later, the second great old world civilization of man arose as Gilles le Breton united the tribes of the Bretoni and drove the orcs and goblins out of their lands, creating the kingdom of Bretonia. The human realms expanded further, but as the second millennium of this new
Yeah, that's right, man. Humans, they always take over.
Calendar started, they were plagued with
We're the best. We're just the best.
decline.
We're also the worst.
And also, like plague. Released by the Skaven, the Black Plague swept through the old world, leading to the rise of the necromancer Van Hel in the spooky eastern provinces of the Empire, in the land of Sylvania, where the Skaven waged war with the shambling hordes of zombies. They were both defeated by Count Mandrid Skavenslayer, who became emperor, but when he was assassinated in 1152, the courts wouldn't agree on a new emperor, and so the empire split into a number of separate factions.
Yeah, and that's how you get war between factions. That's I guarantee you that's what's coming next.
In 1494, the final human kingdom of this era emerged as the Khan Queen Mishka led the Gospodars through the High Pass and drove back the Ongol tribes. Her daughter would become the first Tsarina of Kislev and a bulwark.
Are we moving over to Arabia? Because that's what this is kind of reminding me of, especially with this little thing right here.
Against chaos invasion, but in the Empire, the split only worsened as more electors declared themselves the real inheritor of Sigmar.
And this looks like England.
Weakening the land as it came under attack again and again from the same old foes. In 1681, Nagash returned, 1666 years after being banished by Sigmar, and towns and villages across the empire were destroyed by undead hordes. A few years later, the Orc War Ironclaw devastated the southern province of Solent, leaving it in ruins. And when the few independent elect accounts, the ones not claiming to be an emperor, elected Margrethe of Marienburg as the new empress in 1979,
dude, that is some British ass shit right there.
The decision was so controversial, the Grand Theogenist of Sigmar refused the appointment. Sigmar's old empire was all but in ruins. The only time a semblance of unity was shown was in 2145, when the various factions united temporarily to defeat Vlad von Karstein, a vampire count who had slowly taken control of Sylvania again over the last few hundred years. And so we arrive in 2276, where this history comes to an end.
Ooh.
The empire is fractured. 4 different rulers vying for the throne and beset on all sides. Though in the west, the kingdom of Bretonia is stronger than ever under the rule of
Bretonia. Yeah, that makes sense. It's just Britain.
Huon Orcslayer. The Wood Elves guard their woodland realm, though the High Elves, under the rule of Finubar the Seafarer, have slowly reopened relations with these new realms, trading with the Empire, Bretonia, and the distant lands of Cathay. In the south, the reawakened Tomb King, Settra, continues his march of conquest, assaulting the Bretonian.
Dude, people just don't stay dead in the Warhammer universe unless they get their souls destroyed.
Client states known as the Border Princes, but for now, Nagash is seldom seen, and the vampire counts have recently been defeated, at least for a while. In the mountains and passes, the dwarves still hold out against hordes of invading orcs and goblins, though a civil war in the Skaven Under-Empire has raged for so long that the loathsome rat men are little more than furry myths. And in the far north, in the realm of chaos, magic still pours into the world, and the forces of the ruinous powers are mobilizing once more. And that's it. We're up to speed.
Sweet.
The era in which
Cool.
the old world is set is one that's never really been investigated in detail before.
Yeah, well, maybe we can get some more detail. That's probably all I'm going to watch of the Warhammer Old World. I just had to get some of the lore of it. I had to know what it was, because I didn't know anything about it. I knew a little bit about 40K. Now I know a little bit about the Old World, or the new Old World. It's confusing. Like, comment, subscribe. Ding the bell for all the notifications.